They thought you were weak, but you were their entire strength. They thought they broke you. They saw your kindness, your empathy, your endless patience, and they mistook it for weakness. They thought they could take, and you'd always be there, always forgiving, always understanding, always available. But here's the truth they failed to see. Your kindness wasn't a crack in your armor. It was your armor. They didn't realize that to remain kind in a world so unkind, to keep giving when all you've known is being taken from, that takes a strength they will never possess. They believed they were winning, pulling strings, playing their games, feeding off your energy like parasites. But they weren't winning. They were simply revealing who they truly are. And they were showing you who you truly are. Every time they lied, manipulated, disrespected you, you got stronger. Not because you didn't feel the pain, but because you learned to carry it with grace. You grew resilient, not by building walls, but by learning to walk away without bitterness. And that's the part they'll never understand. They didn't see that the quietest people hold the loudest power. The ones who walk away without a word often leave the deepest void. They didn't see the fire behind your calm eyes, the storm behind your soft voice. They thought they were the puppeteer, but they were just a shadow, feeding off your light. And now that light is gone. You're not angry. You're not seeking revenge. You've simply evolved, and they can't reach you anymore. See, people like them never anticipate a shift in energy. They think they can keep leading someone dry without consequence. But life has a way of echoing back exactly what we put out. And now, the echo is coming for them. They'll wake up in the silence you left behind. The warmth they once bathed in is gone. The safe space you created, the one they took for granted, is closed. They'll look for you in every new person they meet. They'll search for that effortless empathy, that unconditional presence, that rare magic that was you. But all they'll find are reflections, shadows, pale imitations. Because people like you don't come twice. You were a once-in-a-lifetime kind of soul. And they lost you. Not because you changed, but because they never truly saw you. They didn't lose you the moment you walked away. They lost you the moment they decided your kindness wasn't worth honoring, that your love was theirs to misuse, that your time, your presence, your spirit were infinite resources they could drain without refilling. But now they know you were the one holding it all together, and without you, it all collapses. You see, the real power was never in your ability to endure mistreatment. It was in your ability to finally say, enough. You didn't announce it. You didn't throw a fit. You just stopped. Stopped showing up. Stopped explaining yourself. Stopped hoping they'd change. And in that silence, they found their consequence. That's the poetic justice of it all. They thought they were discarding someone ordinary, but they were losing the very anchor keeping them afloat. Now you're thriving. Not in revenge, not in spite, but in pure, unapologetic freedom. You've turned your pain into power, your heartbreak into healing. You've taken every scar and made it part of your story. Not something to hide, but something to wear proudly. Because those scars mean you survived. And more than that, you grew. The version of you that tolerated mistreatment is gone. In their place stands someone wiser, stronger, untouchable. They'll keep looking for you in crowds, in memories, in dreams. They'll scroll through your old messages, replay your laughter in their mind, wonder how they ever felt so safe, so seen, and still managed to destroy it. But regret is a prison, and they built it themselves. Meanwhile, you've stepped into your light, and it's brighter than ever. You're no longer wasting energy trying to explain your worth. You're no longer pouring into people who bring nothing but emptiness in return. Because now you know, not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone is entitled to your kindness. You've raised your standards. You've chosen peace over chaos, self-respect over codependency, growth over guilt. And the most beautiful part? You didn't have to destroy them to rise. You just had to reclaim you. So let them sit with their choices. Let them drown in the silence they once mistook for submission. Let them wonder where they went wrong, even though deep down they already know. They underestimated you, and that was their greatest mistake, because the person they thought was weak, the one they thought they could manipulate, drain, discard, that person has become something unstoppable. And now, as they spiral, you soar. They say you never really know what you have until it's gone. But in truth, they knew. They just never thought you'd leave. They counted on your loyalty. They bet on your fear of being alone. They mistook your compassion for dependency. But they were wrong. So very wrong. Because when a kind heart finally walks away, it never looks back. It doesn't slam doors. It doesn't shout. It doesn't throw a tantrum. It just disappears. And suddenly, everything feels colder. They'll try to convince themselves you were the problem. They'll tell their side of the story, paint themselves as the victim, rewrite history in a way that makes them feel less empty. But late at night, when there's no one left to lie to, they'll feel it. That void, that gaping space where your energy used to live. They'll remember how your words could calm a storm, how your presence made the air feel lighter, how your love never asked for anything but honesty and effort. And they'll realize they didn't just lose someone who loved them. They lost someone who understood them. And that's rare, rarer than anything they'll ever find again. See, you weren't just a person in their life. You were the healer, the safe space, the one who saw them, even in their chaos, and still offered peace. But they chose ego over growth, games over truth, control over connection. And now the silence you've left behind, it's louder than anything you ever said. But let's shift the lens back to you, because this isn't their story anymore. This is your rebirth. You've stopped shrinking yourself to fit into broken spaces. You've stopped watering dead plants hoping they'll bloom. You've stopped begging for the bare minimum when you were giving the world. Now you're building a life where you're the main character, where your peace is the priority, where your dreams aren't delayed for anyone else's comfort. You've realized something powerful. Your value isn't determined by how much someone needs you. It's revealed by how much you flourish when they're gone. You're glowing differently now, not because you changed who you are, but because you finally honored it. You're attracting people who see your worth without being reminded, who respect your boundaries without being told, who bring peace, not problems. You've outgrown spaces that required you to lower your standards. You've outgrown people who only loved the version of you they could control. Now, you love from wholeness, not from wounds. You give from abundance, not from desperation. You walk away with grace, not because you're weak, but because you're finally strong enough not to stay. So to the ones who thought you were weak, thank you. Thank you for underestimating you. Thank you for forcing you to find your voice. Thank you for being the lesson that led to your liberation. Because now, you're not just surviving, you're thriving. And while they're still stuck in their cycle, repeating patterns, chasing temporary highs, trying to fill the void with noise, you're over here, building something lasting. Peace, purpose, power. This is your era, the era of saying no unapologetically, of protecting your energy like your life depends on it, because it does, of choosing yourself every single time. You no longer need to explain why you walked away. Your silence is the explanation. Your glow is the proof. Your peace is the victory. And let this be a message to anyone who tries to dim your light again. They can't take from you what they never gave. They can't break what they didn't build. They can't stop what's already written, because your destiny doesn't require their approval. Your future doesn't depend on their return. You're not waiting on closure. You're not hoping for an apology. You're done shrinking to be loved. You're expanding. You're elevating. You're becoming. And the best part? You did it all quietly, gracefully, relentlessly. So the next time someone mistakes your kindness for weakness, let them. Just smile, step back, and let them watch the power of someone who finally knows their worth. You are not their lesson anymore. You are your own liberation. The most beautiful part about walking away. You didn't need to slam the door to make a point. You didn't burn bridges. You simply stopped crossing ones that led nowhere. Because silence is loud when it comes from someone who once gave their all. And your silence, it echoes. See, healing didn't make you bitter. It made you clear. Clear about who you are. Clear about what you deserve. Clear about what you'll never tolerate again. There's power in becoming unrecognizable to people who once thought they had you all figured out. They don't know this version of you, the one who chooses peace over chaos, the one who protects their energy like a sacred thing, the one who understands that being alone is not a punishment. It's a privilege when peace is the prize. And now that you've evolved, you're no longer impressed by the same things. Temporary attention doesn't excite you. Empty apologies don't move you. Words mean little when they're not backed by consistency. Because when someone truly values you, you won't have to question it. You won't have to chase it. You won't have to wonder. You're done performing for love. You're done negotiating your standards just to be seen. You're done trying to be enough for people who were never ready to receive real love in the first place. Because the truth is, they were never rejecting you. They were rejecting the reflection you held up to them, the mirror of their own lack, their own fears, their own unhealed wounds. You were light in a room they weren't ready to brighten. You were love in a heart that only knew how to survive. You were truth in a space built on illusion. But none of that was ever your burden to carry. Let it go. Let go of the need to be understood by those who never tried. Let go of the desire to prove your worth to people who were committed to missing it. Let go of the idea that closure comes from conversations, because sometimes the closure is you choosing peace over explanation. Sometimes the healing is in the walking away, and you didn't lose them. They lost you. They lost someone who would have stood by them in the dark, who would have held space for their pain, who would have loved them through every storm. But love without respect isn't love. Loyalty without reciprocity is just self-destruction. And staying in places where you're constantly overlooked isn't noble. It's exhausting. Now you know better. Now you do better. You speak kindly to yourself. You rest without guilt. You say no without explaining. You remove yourself from chaos and call it self-respect. You're no longer seeking love in places that hurt you. You're creating it within. Every boundary is an act of self-love. Every goodbye is a declaration. I choose me now, and trust me. That choice? It's your greatest comeback. The version of you that's emerging? Unshakable, unbothered, unapologetic. You're no longer in survival mode. You're in alignment now. You're building a life that doesn't need to be escaped from. A life full of meaning, not just noise. A life where love feels safe, not scary. Where your presence is met with gratitude, not entitlement. You've rewritten the rules. You no longer love people for their potential. You love them for who they are. And if who they are doesn't bring peace, you let go. No guilt, no shame, no second guessing. Because peace is not something you'll compromise again. So let them say what they want. Let them tell their version. You don't need to defend your growth to people committed to misunderstanding it. Your life speaks for itself. Your glow tells the story. Your peace is the proof. And while they're busy trying to replace what they lost, you're building, growing, healing, thriving. You've stepped into your power. And once you taste that kind of freedom, you'll never go back.